What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back with another Four Corners for today's 8-game MLB main slate, courtesy of Awesemo.com. We got ourselves 8 games today, but it looks like it should be a fun slate and one that should have some quality hitting even as it starts to cool down across the US. And unfortunately, we didn't get a double dong out of yesterday's comment, so I need you guys to try real hard today. And right now, like this video, and if you want to win a free month of Awesemo Plus, like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. Eloy Jimenez was the only guy who did it at Major League Baseball yesterday, so get weird with it. Pick whoever you want, but whatever you do, like this video and comment that double dong pick down below. But as always, let's start with our first corner on today's slate, the top pitching, and Shane Bieber going against the White Sox to be the top owned option industry-wide. Bieber gets 2.9 implied runs against him, which are slate low, and is expected to be the number one owned pitcher on DraftKings with 42%, on FanDuel with 34%, and on Yahoo with 54%. Bieber's been a monster in 2019 with a 31% K rate and a 14.2% swinging strike rate. So even though he has some troubling lefty power issues with his 209 ISO allowed, the 26.2% K rate of the White Sox versus right-hand pitching is a high upside spot for Bieber. Bieber has shown slate-breaking upside, and even though there are a couple lefty bats who could get to him, guys like Yohan Moncada, I do think it's a really nice spot for Bieber, and I imagine I'll at least match the field on his ownership today. Hyunjin Ryu versus Colorado should also find some ownership with 3.4 implied runs against him. Ryu will be number 2 owned on FanDuel with 21% and on Yahoo with 32%, while he'll be number 3 owned on DraftKings with 30%. Colorado has significantly more success versus left-hand pitching with 5 hitters over a 109 WRC+. So with Ryu's low 22% K rate, he does seem a bit highly owned despite the cheaper price. I don't mind Ryu as a pitcher. He does a good job limiting damage, but a guy like Shane Bieber has a ton of upside. We have cheap guys who can also do a decent job of finding strikeouts and limiting upside. I think Ryu is at a weird price point and one where I won't get where the field is with him today. And Jacob Junis versus Detroit also should pick up some ownership with 3.9 implied runs against him. Junis will be number 2 owned on DraftKings with 32%, and he'll be number 4 on Yahoo at 24%. Junis has pieced together decent starts recently, so at a reasonable price versus the Detroit projected lineup with a 28% K rate and no hitters above a 96 WRC+ versus right-hand pitching, this feels like it should be a safe-ish spot for who's normally a mediocre pitcher. Jacob Junis, not the most exciting pitcher to roster, definitely not as chalk, but he does seem like he's in a really good spot here. There are some pivots out there I'll talk about later, but I do like Junis enough today. Now onto our next corner, the top stacks on the slate, and a Dodger stack versus Antonio Senzatella should be popular again. Dodgers get 6.1 implied runs, which are a slate high, and Senzatella grades out similarly to Chi yesterday with a poor 1.8 whip, 5.3 xFIP, and a bad 12% K rate. The Dodgers did not get to Cy Chi Gonzalez for 6 innings, but this remains a solid spot for a top-owned stack with every hitter besides Hyunjin Ryu over a 104 WRC+ versus right-hand pitching. Even though Chi limited the Dodgers pretty well yesterday, I do like the spot for them once again. It's another hot day in LA, and the Dodgers have just mashed right-handed pitching all year long. The Kansas City stack versus Edwin Jackson should also pick up some ownership today with a 6.1 implied runs for them. Jackson remains poor on the year with a 2 whip, 5.9 xFIP, and an 11.7% barreled ball rate that could give Kansas City a shot at really good production today. Kansas City isn't an elite hitting squad with a 156 ISO versus right-hand pitching in a not-too-hot park that limits power, so many stacks may be a move to get away from what looks like a very chalky full stack. Jackson's been bad for years, but Kansas City does look a bit overowned as a full stack. I think mini stacks and one-offs, one guy in particular I'll talk about in a bit, seem like the move to me. And a Cleveland stack versus Ivan Nova should also pick up some ownership with the 5.6 implied runs for them. Nova is a poor pitcher at best, but he limits production better than you'd think with a 4.9 xFIP and a 186 ISO allowed. Should be under 70 degrees in Cleveland for first pitch, so while reasonable prices for the team are appealing, the stack seems a bit overowned with mini stacks or left-hand batters are more appealing given that Nova gives up a 209 ISO and 5.2 xFIP to that side of the plate. I don't mind Cleveland, but with high ownership and Nova generally limiting that full stack production, I think it's a decent spot to come under the field on them today. And now on to our next corner on the slate, the lower owned options, and a Minnesota stack versus Eduardo Rodriguez intrigues me. Minnesota gets 5 implied runs, and they've raked versus left-hand pitching all year with a 126 WRC+ and an insane 243 ISO. So even though Erod limits power pretty well, it should be a high upside spot. The low 144 ISO that Erod allows is scary, but Minnesota's also low 21% K rate versus left-hand pitching will give them a chance to create production at lower ownership than their projections seem to indicate. Given the crazy power that Minnesota has, getting them at low ownership is always an appealing move. I think Erod's actually been a pretty good pitcher on the year, but Minnesota can definitely get to him in this spot. Zach Gallen versus San Diego also interests me with the 3.6 implied runs against him. To me, Gallen has been underrated on the year with a 28.2% K rate and low 126 ISO allowed, so in a pitching-friendly park, this could be a nice spot again. Gallen's 4.2 xFIP is a little high and may show some potential for regression, but with a 26% K rate for San Diego on the year versus right-hand pitching, he could have a nice day at what looks like reasonable ownership. Gallen's a guy I tend to trust, and with a San Diego team who's gotten less potent as the year has gone on, I think it's a decent spot to go to him today at not a ton of expected ownership. An Oakland stack versus Patrick Sandoval also looks good with the 5.3 implied runs for them. Sandoval has shown glimpses of good things with a 27.3% K rate, but he's been crushed by left-handed batters with an 8.3 xFIP and 264 ISO allowed. He does seem due for some right-handed bat regression as well. Oakland doesn't have much in the way of lefty power, but they have a 217 ISO versus left-hand pitching with a lower than expected 19.1% K rate, and that could be valuable at mostly low prices and ownership. It's not a great park, and honestly, I could imagine I'll have some Sandoval exposure as well, but Oakland is a team with a ton of power who could have potential today at not much ownership. And Trevor Williams versus Miami also looks pretty good with the 3.7 implied runs for him. Miami stinks enough with a 26% K rate and 125 ISO versus right-hand pitching that Williams seems worth the ride at a shockingly cheap price for the matchup. Williams has been particularly good versus right-hand batters over the last 2 seasons with a 1.2 whip and a 3.9 xFIP, so versus a righty-heavy Miami lineup, he may be due for positive regression from his iffy 2019 numbers. Williams is not a great pitcher, not a guy I'm dying to have normally, but at a cheap price versus Miami, it does seem like a spot here that he can get things going. And now onto our last corner of the one-offs, and Jorge Soler versus Edwin Jackson intrigues me a lot. A 256 ISO and 124 WRC plus versus right-hand pitching for Soler against Jackson's 247 ISO and 5.6 xFIP to right-handed batter seems like a perfect pairing for a guy who's a hot hitter right now. To me, Soler looks like the best hitter in that Kansas City lineup, and with them being a highly owned chalk stack today, it looks like a spot to go to him as a one-off and try to capture that production. Nelson Cruz versus Eduardo Rodriguez also interests me as a one-off. The ageless Cruz is a 353 ISO versus left-hand pitching, so even though Erod does limit power well with a 136 ISO to right-handed batters, it seems possible Cruz can get to him. Erod does limit power well, but Nelson Cruz has smashed left-handed pitching so well I think it's hard to ignore, and not a ton of ownership expected today. And Alex Dickerson versus Michael Wacha also interests me as a one-off. It's a poor power park, but Dickerson has a 248 ISO and 135 WRC plus versus right-hand pitching, while Wacha seems due for some lefty regression with the 184 ISO that he gives up overall. The Giants deservedly don't get a lot of love, but they do have a couple competent hitters in their lineup, and Dickerson is one of those guys who could take advantage of a weak pitcher in Michael Wacha. So there you guys have it. Those are my thoughts on today's slate. So right now, please like the video, and if you want to win that free month of Osmo Plus, like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. If you don't want to wait for me, the crown prince of double dongs, to give you a shot at that free month of Osmo Plus, you can also use this promo code Switch and Hedge. Got a lot of new packages that are going up right now on the osmo.com/join page, and that Switch and Hedge promo code will get you half off of all your first months. So go right now to osmo.com/join. Use the promo code Switch and Hedge for half off your first month. Go follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. I've got a ton of content coming out that is both MLB and NFL season, and I've also got my own personal content out there as well, including myself smashing my funny bone yesterday in hilariously shameful fashion. So go check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. I was on today's NFL strategy show with Lofty, so if you're looking for some good week 1 takes, go check that show out. We had a really good time doing that one. A lot of fun, a lot of interesting stuff that we both surfaced, so go check it out on the YouTube channel here. Of course, I'll be back again soon with another Four Corners. So thank you guys for watching, and good luck.